Hi, my name is Sam Greenblatt. I wanted to talk to you all today about 5 common thinking traps that people often get into. Sometimes we think in ways that aren't really the most useful ways of thinking, and oftentimes we could get ourselves into these little traps that start to mess us up in different ways. There's a ton of different types of thinking traps that people get into. Everyone does each one to some extent, but different people gravitate towards different ones. So I wanted to go over at least 5 that are important to be aware of, because once we're aware of the ways that our minds start to entangle us, we could start to more easily fix some of these maladaptive processes that we're going through. So the first thinking trap is maybe the most common thinking trap that I think so many people get into. And this is all or nothing thinking, sometimes called black and white thinking. And what that is thinking without any flexibility, without any middle ground. You either will completely succeed or you will completely fail. If you're not a pro player, then there's nothing valid about your gameplay, that it's horrible and that it's terrible, that you either completely would demolish and win a game or there's nothing useful to be gained from it. So thinking in that all or nothing style, it's kind of a rigid style that can get us into trouble and lead us feeling frustrated a lot of the time. The second thinking trap that I think that many people get into is called personalization. And personalization is putting an undue amount of pressure on yourself. So for a game like Overwatch, it's a 6v6. There's 12 people total, 12 different variables that are determining whether one team wins or loses. And with personalization, it means that sometimes we could think that the whole game was because of one mistake that we might have made, or we won because of us and it was only us that contributed to the win, or we lost just because of us. And by having kind of that spotlight effect on us and thinking that we have more of an influence on the game's outcome than we actually do, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, and that's not a really sustainable way to play. With all that pressure on yourself, with really believing that every game's outcome is so dependent on your own gameplay, it could be a really challenging situation to put yourself in, and you might find yourself playing worse because of the pressure that you put yourself under. So the third thinking trap is called labeling. And labeling is something that so many people do, of calling somebody else an asshole or a jerk or a thrower. Or they do it to themselves. They say that I'm incompetent, I can't do anything, I can't play at all. And when you start to do these, it's unhelpful. When you do it to yourself, you don't give yourself the chance to grow, and when you do it to others, it's the same way. If you're labeling them that this is the way that they are and you have that kind of rigid expectation of them, you're not really giving them the opportunity to change or to prove themselves, and you might be shooting yourself in the foot. The fourth thinking trap that I wanted to talk about is shoulds or musts. Using the word should or using the word must. Albert Ellis, who came up with a lot of these different labels of thinking traps, he used the term shoulding on yourself. He said that when you're talking about shoulds or musts, that's kind of what you're doing. You're shitting on yourself. You're being excessively hard on yourself. You're saying that this one situation is something that should happen, that must happen. I must win. I should be doing better. I shouldn't have missed that shot. And by having those rigid expectations on yourself, it leads to a really frustrating and unrealistic kind of situation. You start to set up these expectations that you might never meet. And by having such rigid expectations for yourself, you're more likely to feel frustrated. You're guaranteed to not meet them, and your progress could be stunted as a result. The last thinking trap that I wanted to talk about is catastrophizing. And you see this so often when people say GG kind of in the middle of a match, and they feel like because of 1 or 2 bad pushes, the whole game is ruined and it's over. It's already a defeat. And I can't tell you how many games that I've won after one of my teammates has said GG. It's not a good predictor of whether you're actually going to win or not. But what catastrophizing does do, by believing that something is going to fail just because of a little bit of evidence that things aren't exactly going your way, you also kind of create that self-fulfilling prophecy. You start to perform worse, you start to perform with an expectation that nothing's going to work, and you make yourself more likely to lose because you're catastrophizing. So there are many thinking traps. Those are just 5, but I think that there are 5 that are really relevant to the game of Overwatch and to competitive video games in general. But you could absolutely feel free to write in the comments which ones you feel like you identify with, or if I missed any and left any out, which kind of thinking traps do you think you get entangled in. And I'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much.